Okay, hello and welcome to episode 6 webTalkTO. I'm Sergey and we have Marwan.
Hello, hello.
Right, and today is February 23rd. Okay,
So what are we doing today, Sergey?
so I think we
Tell us.
just continue with our accessibility, talking about accessibility. There is still maybe half of the stuff that we didn't cover in the last presentation in episode 4. If you didn't watch that, then you should check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As promised, Sergey is doing part 2 of that one, which is a pretty popular episode.
Yeah, and Marwan, please help me out if you think that something is missing or you can provide some extra context, then please help me out.
For sure.
Alright, so what did we look at last time was this page that contained two kind of programs, two loyalty programs.
Oh yeah, the gum rewards,
Yes,
right?
bubblegum rewards and
Bubblegum rewards.
bubblegum
Yeah,
plus. Right.
yeah,
And
like from buying all the bubblegum, like most people do, you have like a monthly subscription, probably, right? Like
yes.
maybe like 20 packs of gum every month.
Yes.
So this program is right up your alley.
It is a great program. Imagine 5 points on almost every dollar.
That's a lot, but we don't know what the 5 points will get you.
That's true too. Well, here it's fictional, but
We'll get 5 points. Will get you a chewed up gum.
Don't know about that. Okay, so we looked at some keyboards accessibility. I'm just trying to give a brief summary of what we talked about last time. So we looked at some keyboard accessibility, focus, and meaningful sequence. Tried to look at some redundant content or incomplete content. Those were some examples with images that were kind of repeating what titles were saying, or sometimes
yeah, that's the image that had like an alt, but it wasn't useful, right? Like
correct.
I think there was like a picture of bubble gums, and you were like making the argument that you probably don't need to put an alt on every single image if it doesn't serve a purpose.
Correct.
It's a good point.
So I think it was this one, which was saying here is an image of the application, but then you have a title that says you can get it, the application, if you download it. So why do you provide some redundant information?
Okay, cool.
And
so that's what we did last time. Now today, high level, what are we gonna look at?
Yes, so I think we're going to look at some web accessibility tools, as well as maybe some extensions of how you can do the verification of the web accessibility, but not by doing that manually, by trying to utilize some of the tools that would do that for you.
Okay.
Right. And maybe let's start into the first one, which is Chrome Accessibility Audit Tools. So I'm sure, Marwan, that you've seen that, but maybe not everyone have knowledge about it. So you can go to the Audits panel, Chrome DevTools, and select Accessibility. You can choose device. It can be mobile or desktop. So maybe we can go with mobile this time. You just press on Generate Report, which would do the warm-up for you. Actually, let me do that in Google Chrome instead, because I think there might
Is it faster?
It might be that Brave just has problems with it.
Yeah, because it's a fork of Chromium, so maybe it's not up to date or something.
Okay.
And that's the infamous Lighthouse, right? It's used for everything from performance to accessibility. It's a great extension.
Right.
Well, not extension, it's built into DevTools, but yeah.
Something that I heard that Mozilla is going to add Lighthouse into its own DevTools.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that will be interesting. Okay, it's definitely going here. And we got 98 score for accessibility, which is suspicious if you remember like how many issues we found through manual audit from last episode. That's actually a pretty big surprise.
Yeah, that's true, huh?
So let's see what actually it got here. So it says that you have issues with background and foreground colors that do not have sufficient contrast ratio. And first one, it complains about this div header. Well, like we don't care too much about this one because it's just fictional element over here. But let's see where it complains about the elements on the page. So this register account as well as this one. Join free button, so those definitely have some issues. And same for this button. So mostly it caught it for the buttons. And
right, but this is just the color contrast, which is
right.
A very small like it's not a significant piece of the puzzle when it comes to accessibility, I guess.
Right. So that's just that, and we're going to look at some other things. But how would we address fixing that? Like, do you know?
Well, it's saying the contrast is not sufficient, contrast ratio. So, and it's not between the button background and the text color. So we can probably turn the text to black, maybe, like have a black text.
Common button.
Font color.
Right. So probably like we need to find the contrast which would work better. I think there might be a built-in way to do that through DevTools to figure out how to make the ratio better.
Okay.
So over here, see, so like I clicked on the color.
Yeah.
Like we know that this button over here, like this element has a problem with the contrast ratio, and I clicked on the color, and right over here it says that contrast ratio is 199, which is not passing the VCAC standard. It should be at least 4.5 for AA. And I wonder if it can give you a suggestion of which colors would work better.
Well, what are these colors at the bottom? Yeah, like what are those?
I don't know. Like I wonder if they might be related to the rest of the page, but it doesn't seem like it.
You can't click on it? Like you can't click on the colors?
Let me try. So I can try clicking on this one. Well, it's even worse than what we had. That actually works.
Oh yeah, so you're in a double A, not triple A yet. Try black. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, that's not fully black. Oh, this one is passing triple A, and this one is the same. Yeah, so something like that would work.
Nice. So you would note does it give you it gives you the hex code for the CSS. You can just take that. Cool.
Yep.
I didn't know.
All right, so let's see what else do we have over here. So it has additional items to manually check, and we're going to dive into that, but well, actually, let's do it right now. So the page has a logical tab order. Well, we checked that in last episode. The keyboard focusable elements. So we saw that FAQ section had a problem. Like you couldn't really jump into the FAQ too easily. You couldn't expand and collapse it. Interactive elements indicate their purpose and state. I'm not sure if we tested this one. So
like using area labels?
Right.
Should
yes.
do that?
I think that's maybe one of the items that we didn't check last time. There are kind of like, aside from FAQs, there is that join plus button that seems to bring some interactivity. You have a checkbox when you click on it, then it brings the label, the error message. So let's see if it's accessible now. Let me just refresh the page quickly and bring the NVDA. And it's NVDA. Right?
Age.
Remind.
Signed up for which program is right for you. $0 heading level 3. $5 heading level 3.
Okay.
Clickable checkbox not checked. I accept the Bubblegum Plus terms and conditions.
Okay.
I accept the link Bubblegum Plus terms and conditions.
So now we're on the link.
Button join plus.
Okay, so let's try to click on that button. And nothing really happened here. So probably that's where you said that area could help us.
Yeah. Is there something like an alert that we're supposed to set, or is this something else?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like there is the area live.
Yeah, area live. Yeah.
Which the way how it works is for screen readers, if something happens, something interactive happens on the page, you might write to the area live element, like I think to the contents of it, to the element that has that area live. If you fill in the text content of it with some text, then it would announce it. And from what I remember, there are two modes to it, right? Like one which is aggressive. I don't really remember what's the value.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
And another one is polite. So I think I think the difference is if you are reading something on the page, like if say like,
button join plus.
Say like something is being announced by the screen reader, and you set polite, then until it will finish reading what it's reading right now, it will not announce what you put into the area live text. But if you put it to the other mode, then it would interrupt right away and just read it out. Right.
It would just, it's a more urgent thing, like that. Yeah, I remember that now.
Right.
So, okay, are we going to fix that?
Well, maybe like in this video, we're just trying to analyze. We're not trying to.
Yeah, I feel like it would take a long time.
Yeah.
To fix all these issues. You know what? Like, I am surprised that the A11Y will give you things that you should manually check. Like, how does it know? How did it know that?
So I think it's just a list of suggestions of like in general, like you should do that other things, because we don't really know. Like we cannot test it for you. Like we cannot simulate a user.
Okay. So this list is not specific to your use case.
Right.
It's
exactly.
just okay, gotcha.
Yes. It's probably like a list based on the best practices. Like last time we looked at the VCAC interpretation by the WebAIM website, and they kind of like try to break down what are the things that are important to check. So this is everything that DevTools cannot check for you, and you have to test for them manually.
Custom controls have associated labels. Custom controls have area roles, visual order.
And like
this is helpful.
Custom controls, are those like form elements, like custom form elements that you're building?
Yeah, I guess it's only if it's a form. Yeah, it makes sense, because why else would you need a label? Like, let's say probably if you do like a file upload component or a date component or something like that.
I see. Okay. Right.
I'm just assuming. I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen to what I'm saying.
Let me know what you think. Like when I think of custom components, like right away I always think you should not use them. Like I always think that you have to find what's natively being supported by the browser and just use that instead of trying to come up with your own.
I agree 100% because it's also like it's going down a rabbit hole. Like with this, there's so many repercussions to go in with a custom component. And earlier in our career, we probably jumped on the idea like, oh yeah, let's create a custom checkbox and a custom radio button.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, like a select that looks so much better. But then you get into like mobile, you know, does it render properly on mobile? And then you get into accessibility and it's like, is each reader like interacting properly on all these different platforms and different browsers? And it's just something that you don't want to, unless you're willing to invest a lot of money and time into it.
Right.
That would not a good idea.
Yes. Okay. Let's move on. So custom controls have area roles. So I think it's similar to what we talked about. By the way, like I think there might be one other way how this error message could be addressed. Potentially, you could do the focused shifting.
Yes.
And can you like maybe give a brief summary of what it involves?
So you would have like a function that triggers, like you would set the focus on that DOM element, and automatically the screen reader will just read that. I mean, to be honest, in my previous projects, that was my go-to solution for lots of different things. Sometimes maybe I didn't have all the knowledge that I needed for the alert, like area, what was it? Area live.
Yes.
Yeah, for the area live. In some cases it didn't work. I had to actually set the focus specifically on that element.
That's interesting. And I wonder, can you give like maybe just if you remember, like why it didn't work? Like why did you have to use tab?
I don't like, so if I remember correctly, there were actual problems with NVDA. So the biggest use case where I was setting focus is when I was working on a single page application and the routes change. So let's say you go from this page to another page and the heading is completely different. And the screen reader, for whatever reason, doesn't determine that or doesn't detect that the route has changed. So I would focus like on component mount, for example. In that component, I would focus on the H1, on the page component.
I see.
I would force focusing on H1 in order to get the damn thing to announce transitions. So I was reading a lot of issues on GitHub about these specific things. So some of it was bugs within the screen reader. It just for some reason it can't detect changes. So yeah, the way that I got it to consistently work on like VoiceOver, NVDA, and like the iOS one. Oh, the iOS is VoiceOver too. I can't remember the third one.
JAWS?
Yeah, JAWS, yeah. The way that it worked consistently is just like focus. I mean, focus was like the magic bullet. You focus on the thing, it will announce it.
Yeah. So,
all the time. Yeah.
That's maybe like another example when I'm mentally thinking keep using native functionality. Like I know that area is supposed to be native as well, but again, if it's a newer thing, not well tested, you don't know like how different browsers work with it. You don't test yourself, but you know that tabs are working and like that's been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
That's why it's better to go with that. For area live, so I only have theoretical knowledge why it potentially didn't work, and I think I know why it didn't work in your case. on WebAIM website, they were saying that if you have elements that are dynamically being added with area life, that's where you would have a problem. So a workaround is to create a static area element with area life, which appears right as page renders. So if you have that single page application, you kind of like need to have a section that is potentially visually hidden that would have that area life, and you would have to update it as you're transitioning from one page to another.
Oh, so that that DOM element should just be visible, like should be in the DOM at all times.
Yes, like
it shouldn't be removed and replaced. It should just be updated.
Right.
Ah,
that might
okay.
be the case, yeah.
Okay. That might have worked actually. I think things have gone better. I feel
Hopefully,
like,
yes.
yeah. It was a pain, man. Like taking a website from, not being accessible to AA was a lot of work because the application was already built, and then you get into these situations where the screen reader itself has problems, or sometimes the screen reader on Chrome has problems, but it doesn't have on Firefox. Like it gets very, very hairy pretty quickly.
How many pages did you have to update? Do you remember?
It was, I want to say, like 6 to 8 pages. It's a single page application. Yeah. So, but it wasn't the number of pages. It was just all these techniques that you had to do for a lot of things. Like if your session time's out.
Yes.
Like giving the user enough time. Yeah. It was pretty like useful. I have an article on Medium actually about this subject.
We should add it to description.
Oh yeah, we should. Yeah. I kind of at the time when I went through that, I spent maybe 3 months probably working on making this public facing site accessible. And I kind of jotted down all the problems at the time, and you'll see in my article this set focus was like a big solution. It was a big duct tape that I used for a lot of problems. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's see what else it says here. Visual order of the pages follows DOM order. I think we talked about that. Off-screen content is hidden from assistive technology. So
what's that?
So that's really that example where when we were going through FAQ section, like maybe I can try to do it again. So as I'm going, and again, focus is not very visible here, but as I'm going through it, so right now I'm on this button over here. Do you see like there is like a thin border? And then I press tab and now the focus is lost. So the problem that we have here is that we have content that is off screen that is not hidden from assistive technology. So basically something like screen reader or like even through keyboard tabbing you can get to the element which is probably a link over here. Like again, if I go from that getting a Google Play button and jump into that about bubblegum, and even when it's collapsed you seem to be jumping right to that element. So it's kind of weird, like you have this section collapsed and visually you cannot really get to it. Why should you be able to get to it through other ways?
Yeah. Oh. Okay, got it.
My headphones detached. Okay. So
don't skip levels in headings.
Right.
Okay, that's an important one.
This is an interesting one. Like I think we're going to look at some other extensions that we have that do detect this problem. I wonder why Chrome DevTools don't do that. Because
yeah. Well, it can detect that you're using the same. I think it's a visual check though. Like you have to make sure that it makes sense, because if you're so let's say, for example, you have H1, H2, H3, and then Chrome checks, okay, yeah, you didn't skip anything. But let's say, for argument's sake, you had your H1 doing like a subheading. You know, like if you're misusing them,
Right.
I feel like it wouldn't know that. It wouldn't know what order it should. But again, if it follows just the ordering in the DOM, maybe that's good enough.
So from my experience, my knowledge, like I don't know again like if it's correct or no, but I think like at least the way how I thought of headings is that if you go from H1 and then you have another H1 after it, then that's probably okay. But then if you have H3 after, then that's probably not the best thing. Again,
Yeah.
I don't know, like probably you should always have just one H1 on the page. That kind of makes sense to me. Like you should have one main heading.
H1. Yeah, H1 I feel like is an exception where
Right.
you should have one. Yeah.
Right. But then after that, you shouldn't have like H3 or H4 right away. Like you kind of like have to, as in your hierarchy, like DOM hierarchy, go one level down at a time.
Yeah.
And then come back to one level up after. That's how you should separate your content.
Yeah, and Chrome could analyze the DOM and see if, this H3 is a child of H1 and there's no H2. Then, yeah, I don't know. There must be a reason, because it sounds like relatively easy to detect.
Okay, and then H5 landmark elements are used to improve navigation. So it's like if you use main, nav, etc. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Then there are whole different things that passed audit. We're not going to look at them. Some are not applicable, like because we don't really use success key. Do you know about this one? Success key attribute?
No, I don't actually. Oh.
So I wonder, maybe WebAIM has an example. Not guaranteed, but let's double check. Hopefully they're not down this time.
Yeah.
No, they don't. So some websites have an attribute. Let me try to edit here. So if we say, so I have this input over here, which is a search element. So we're going to try to add an attribute to it. Success key equal Q. So now if we look at it, it has this attribute over here. And I think if I press Alt Q, then now it becomes focusable. So let me do it again.
Can you focus away? Yeah.
Yeah, so like I will just go down, like right now I'm over here on accessibility training. You press Alt Q, it jumps back to that element.
No way.
So it is.
I've been living under a rock. I didn't know you could do that.
You could do that, but it's also considered an anti-pattern.
Why? Sounds like a great thing.
Correct, but the reason being is that it can interfere with other accessibility tools that you have. Like sometimes I find that I'm using WebStorm and I'm pressing Control Alt N to bring something.
File.
Yes, and what happens is instead is NVDA opens up, because that's the same screen shortcut.
Right.
And the idea is that like maybe try not to annoy users, let them use their own shortcuts. They might come up with their own ways to find content on your site. Just make it accessible in general, and then for the access key, just don't bother adding them.
Okay, but what was Chrome saying about the access key again? It's saying that you should add it, or what?
It's not Chrome, so I think I saw.
No, sorry, like the report that you were just reading on.
Oh. Yeah, it says that values should be unique over here. So it's given that you're using it, there shouldn't be two elements that use the same access key with the same value.
Okay. So then it's not like Lighthouse is not saying that you shouldn't use it per se. It's just an anti-pattern.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's controversial. So
Okay. Fair.
even if you read, so that's where I got that information. That some people say like it's a good idea implemented poorly. Should it be used at all? And like this article over here kind of talks about the answer to this question is not an easy one. Here you go.
There you go. That sums it up.
Yeah. All right. And there are like some other examples of elements that we didn't use. So in general, I think we get the idea that we got a pretty high score for kind of the analysis that Chrome DevTools is using, but I think in a summary, it's definitely not the only tool that you should be using. You should actually understand what all of those manual steps mean and kind of test them separately.
So it's just like a first level check kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you're not missing the basics.
Right.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm back to
So that's the accessibility extension for Chrome. Yes. What else do we have in terms of extensions?
And the other tools that we have, so we have this wave evaluation tool, X and color blindness empathy test. So all of those will bring kind of Chrome store installation, and I already installed all of them, so let me just refresh this page and we can see that DevTools are stuck. Hope that I can close them. Okay, so let's start with Wave maybe. So web accessibility evaluation tool, and if we activate it.
Is this by WebAIM, this tool? Or no?
Yes, powered by WebAIM.
Oh, powered by WebAIM. Okay, gotcha.
And you can see with styles, without styles, gives you some summary. So it seems like there are no errors, there are some features, some area examples actually, structural elements, etc. So I think the interesting one is contrast errors. So we've seen some warnings from Chrome tools about header, about the buttons. So we can see this icon over here. It actually says very low contrast. But it didn't really complain, like Chrome DevTools didn't really complain about this one over here, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So let's see. So it says it's also very low contrast, and when you click on it, you don't really see any text. But that's suspicious, like we saw the text already, like if I were to refresh the page, we saw the text, and it's kind of like laying on that background. So
yeah.
Any idea of why it might be complaining?
Can you go back to the wave thing? Because the feed is kind of pixelated right now.
Oh, sorry.
What is it saying in the H1?
Yes.
Beside the H1?
So if we click on it, it says very low contrast between foreground and background colors.
Okay.
We can bring some code over here as well. So we have H1 with color, white color, and background. It's probably because of the wave tools.
Yeah, so it's saying that the contrast is not good enough, but in Chrome it didn't, right? That's what your question is.
Right.
Why? Interesting. I think maybe Chrome doesn't understand when the background is an image. It only looks at the background color, like the CSS property background color.
Yes, I think that's you're right. So if we were to, maybe let's try to simulate very slow network over here and see what happens in that case.
Okay.
So network tab, and if I want to simulate it, I just choose slow 3G, I guess. So let's try to refresh this page. So it's get in HTML, get in CSS, right, and get in some other resources. Keep loading. Right, should display as soon as CSS is ready. There are many files here.
So the image is gonna take longer, you mean, to load?
Yes, so I think that's the problem. You came to the page, header should be there, the styles for it is there, but because image is not there, that's why it is an accessibility issue.
Gotcha.
Especially visible on the slow network. So something that, like, it also teaches you something, like, you might not really consider network speed when you're working with accessibility, but that's also a very important thing to look at.
Yeah, that should be a factor.
Okay, let's see what else was there. And it also brings this H1 over here and H3, so there is this warning, and here, like, we have this error.
It tells you it skipped ahead. Okay.
Right. So that's what Chrome DevTools didn't show, but the Wave picked up.
So, but it's still, there's value in using Chrome DevTools, I guess, right? Like, can you get away with just using this?
Probably because it's complicated, accessibility is, like, Chrome DevTools should have a better access to accessibility versus the Wave. Just sometimes are refraining from analyzing some stuff because maybe it's not super accurate. That's why, I don't know, it's hard to say. I think, like, you shouldn't use one over the other. You should use both and see which one is better in which situation.
Okay.
Like, for example, this one, I don't think it tells you about the things that you have to test manually, while the other one just gave you, like, a full summary of things that you should consider.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I feel like that world of accessibility is just evolving all the time. There's no clear, like, methodologies and tools, and everything is kind of getting better.
I agree. Okay. So yeah, like, overall, I think Wave is bringing some value over here. Let's try to look at some others. So
Sure.
To turn on off Wave. And
so far we looked at the Chrome DevTools, accessibility, and now we looked at Wave. What's the third one?
X. Yep. So X. So it's a tool provided by DQ, also a company that is doing some accessibility stuff. And if we were to, so it says
DQ. I know DQ. They have really good blizzards.
Okay, and it just adds another panel to DevTools for X. So if you try to click Analyze, then it actually brings 36 items that it suspects must have sufficient color contrast. So let's see. I think you can go through them over here. So it complains about the header element, and to solve this violation you need to fix the following. should have sufficient contrast color. Maybe I can make it bigger.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Font size, font weight, expected contrast ratio should be 4.5. So it gives you some other tools, like you can also jump to the element quickly. What else?
Can we just like all issues found 38. So 36 of them are color and contrast. That's what it's saying.
Yes.
And then what are the other ones? High level heading levels should be okay.
Yeah.
So this is the skipping.
Yeah.
And then all the page content. Okay, we don't have landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that actually caught the landmarks because the other ones they just recommended that you use them.
Right.
But it didn't say.
Yeah. So it says ensure page content is constrained by landmarks, element location, source. So I guess we just don't really have any landmarks. Like for header, I don't know, like how did it, should it use header instead? That's what it caught.
I guess, yeah.
But I guess what I really like about this tool in particular is that it also gives you kind of categorization. Say like for contrast, you are violating VCAC to AA, and this VCAC 143.
Okay.
And categories color. Right. Cool.
So far, the other two seems to be more powerful than this one in terms of like feature set, right?
Right. One thing though, like so here, what this tool is saying is, say, take this heading as an example.
Yeah.
So it does say that we are actually not sure if that's the issue because element background color could not be determined because element contains an image node. So it is on the image, and they don't really have a way to analyze the image. So for that reason, they suggest you to make sure that contrast is good between the text and the image itself.
Okay, right.
So that's powerful too.
Yeah. And so far, like, I guess none of the extensions or tools that exist, will do like a more thorough, single page application testing to make sure screen readers are reading things. Like, none of them do that, right? That's still a manual process.
Yeah. No, like you have to manually test things, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But I think over time, as developers get more familiar with how to build features, and they know which patterns to use, then just naturally by looking at the markup, it would make sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like I said, it's an evolving space, and there is a lot of opportunity for someone to come in and create like even services for accessibility. Like an API that you hit to audit your website, a more thorough audit. It could hook into like screen readers and make sure that things are being announced properly. Like there's room for more automation, let's say.
100%. Let me mention something that is probably not mentioned too often, but I did hear from some people who are working in accessibility space that especially in countries where accessibility is enforced,
Canada is one of them, I guess.
Not, it is, yeah, but not as aggressive as in United States yet. And there are companies who are building automation to detect accessibility issues, but they are not using it in a way to, to sell it as a service. Instead, they use it to file lawsuits against the companies.
What? So wait, what's their business model? They they sue on behalf of like clients who have accessibility
Yes, but also
issues?
correct.
Huh.
Or maybe they might not care too much about that, like, or maybe they do care a lot about it, like, hard to say, but the main point is that they're using that automation technology to find and analyze websites that appear in a certain space, in a certain range of domains, and
Probably banks.
that too.
They have the
Yes.
most money.
and just like find accessibility issues so that they can get into another lawsuit.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess you could make more money that way than building an API.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, let's move on to the last.
From your research, you didn't see any like clear winners, like a service that does audit in terms of automation? I mean, in terms of accessibility automation?
I know.
Is there like a major, provider that's dominating the market?
I don't know that, unfortunately. Like, I know that there are companies out there that do sell you services and like help you to in different ways, like to educate you, to maybe do the analysis for you. They would get people with needs to kind of like go to your website and analyze what should be adjusted. But they, like I don't really know of exact companies.
Sure. Yeah. It's not really part of the scope of this presentation, but I was just curious.
I think like just for AOD specifically, I know that there is that AODC, and then Accessibility Canada is the company that is providing services and training right now.
I've heard of them, yeah.
Okay, let's look at the last tool which we have, and that's the color blindness empathy test tool. I think it's just some person built it and open sourced it on GitHub. So over here you can use different modes for verifying vision loss tests. So say like no vision loss test versus moderate, and you can see the page content became blurred a little bit. I guess it's using CSS filters or something like that, potentially.
Okay.
And then severe vision loss. So over here at this point, someone would have to use the screen reader. Can't really enlarge text. Like even if you do, then you still cannot really read any of that. But you might have an idea of, here I have maybe a button, and here I have an image. So there might be people like that.
Can you go to moderate again? Moderate vision loss?
Yep. So moderate, you can sort of read it. Like probably your eyes will get tired, and surely people would have to use glasses, but not everyone wear them all the time. There are different situations.
It's a nice plugin.
Yeah, and then like you obviously have just nothing where you would have to use screen reader for sure. And then there are other different types of kind of visual differences, like where you can test different conditions and see like how it affects the page. So let me maybe try to zoom out, and let's see. So see the colors are changing in different ways, and maybe sometimes it would, like the contrast, like you can tell just by looking at that sometimes contrast is just not enough.
Oh, okay, I see.
Like for this text, it's just horrible, so should be
But that text failed our contrast test or no?
I don't think so, because this is not a real text. It's an image.
Okay. Okay, so that's another limitation, eh? So this tool is definitely better than the contrast number that you get with any other tool.
Yeah, it's yet another way to test it for it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me see if I have one more tool. So this is the tool that I actually use personally. I don't know if I can call it an accessibility tool, but I think in a way it is. So when I press a certain shortcut, it looks at focusable elements on the page and brings a number next to it. So over here, for example, I have many elements that are focusable, and if I press on one of the shortcuts, like say number 2, then now I can interact with the elements. And
cool. That's an extension or what?
Yes, it's a Chrome extension. There are a lot of tools like that. I think if we look at
Let's go inside your email.
just one sec, I'm trying to remember. So on github.com, and if we look at something like that. Ace
That's
jump.
That's a good alternative to the access key.
Yes. So that's, like here I don't really need to use the access key anymore because I have my own tools, and that's probably the idea. So there is that tool called Ace Jump. This particular one is for Visual Studio, but there is one for WebStorm as well. Maybe if I look for tags. And it can bring the same type of experience in different editors. So see, like in this particular one is for IntelliJ IDs. You can install it, press a short key, and then you can kind of press on E letter as it's shown over here, and then it would bring like a jump sequence for you. So once you press on it, then you jump exactly to that place. It's almost like an alternative to search in a way.
Do you use that on a day-to-day while you're writing code?
Not on a day-to-day. I find that I already learned a different way to jump through it, but sometimes I think that I need something like that in some situations. On the web, on a web specifically, I use this one all the time because I don't want to kind of go between my keyboard and mouse too much, and I don't have a touch bar like I use with the keyboard, like even when I'm on a laptop. So I find that like a lot more convenient to kind of jump to a specific area without moving my hands too much. That helps me to kind of keep my hands more relaxed. But what I wanted to bring up here is that on this page, I think it shows a different, some different other examples. So there is idea Ving, K-Light, Trace Jump, AV. For Sublime, there is one. Atom, Visual Studio, there are multiple. Chrome, etc., etc. So it's not a new idea like of using those tools. And the reason why I brought it up, because sometimes I try to use this tool and I find that I can't really use it efficiently. So right now I actually went to the email. I pressed the email button on the accessibility website to try to share it via email, but nothing really happens. So something tells me that this functionality is broken. Like it's not like the handlers are probably not set up correctly, or maybe they're not using elements properly. So as a result, I cannot really use this tool. And I didn't pick this one on purpose. I didn't know that it will break.
I Accessibility Services Canada, you guys are doing a great job with your website.
For sure they use like a third-party plugin over here.
No, I know.
100%, but yeah, I didn't pick that on purpose. I just tried that right now, like as we're recording that, and it got broken. So like I guess it's a good example of, you know, how sometimes things are not implemented properly and they affect like even people with, you know, not a huge accessibility need, but kind of brings inconvenience. Now I need to move my mouse.
Yeah, poor guy. Now he has to move his mouse.
Well, you know, if my hand is tired, you know, like the tunnel syndrome, like I don't want to use mouse. So
No, I know. No, I know. This is a real thing, though.
yeah.
Like, I would rather not use the mouse as much as possible. I mean, trackpad is much better than mouse.
Yes.
But yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
So by comparison, we saw that, you know, not a single tool is perfect. Like they should be used in combination. The manual audit revealed a lot more than the automated audit. But without automated audit, we could potentially miss some more complex cases too. So that's like a summary of the comparison. And then if you want to maybe integrate accessibility checking into your DevTools, into the pipeline, then there are plenty of packages on NPM specifically, and I'm sure that there are some others. So here we have this accessibility package. There is one for ESLint plugin, GSX accessibility, which would probably monitor things where you're adding like a binding for keyboard but miss the binding for the mouse. So things like that. And then for X plugin, like there is that X core, which would give you a similar summary, etc., etc.
Sweet, you can hook that into your CI.
Did you use any of?
Good idea.
Did you use any of that in your previous companies? No.
No, I never worked anywhere where we had accessibility as part of CI. Did you?
So we use that ESLint plugin GSX accessibility in a couple of projects, mostly newer projects, and it catches some of the stuff. Like sometimes it gives warnings as well, so you can either silence them, or if it's a real thing, then you can mitigate, you know, like apply the fix for it.
I feel like this one I think I should be able to use it going forward, because you don't need it to be part of the well, you can do it locally. Like I guess you could do a pre-hook.
Right. Yes, that's another good idea.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay. And I guess some resources for self-education. So Udacity free course, you can just sign up and go through like a lot of different techniques of the things that you have to keep in mind, like those things that we looked at, which are not automated tools but manual testing. A lot of the examples I learned from this free course. There are some playlists by the Google team where they are going into the depth of accessibility testing. Some patterns. So usually when I don't really know about what's the best way, then I try to look at how others implemented it. And there is accessibility project that gives you different patterns for implementing things. Web Experience Toolkit. So I think that's specifically an open source project by Government of Canada, where they're trying to bring some almost like a style guide with accessibility material, and they have all of the code and examples on the GitHub as well, which is very cool.
Pretty nice. I didn't know about that one.
Yep. I always go to official government websites or banks to verify for accessibility features, like how did they implement that, and also WebAIM.
So the Canadian government website is a good example of proper accessibility
I think it's
from your experience.
it's an interesting example. I like, like here they have the skip links right away that you can look at. So
It's a good sign. Yeah.
it seems that order makes sense. Like for example, I jumped to the menu, but it didn't really open it right away. So that's a user experience improvement, I think. Like if I want to interact with it, then at that point now I can use the arrows to jump between sections. I'm just using arrows right now. I think that's very cool.
Nice.
What I really liked was that specific one is when you press escape, then it goes back to the heading, the kind of the beginning of the section.
Wow.
Then escape again. I think like now it's that benefits button, escape again.
Yeah.
Menu just focused but didn't close it yet. And once again escape, now it's closed. So I really like this experience.
Nice.
Let's see. So DevTools, accessibility tools. So that's just a page that talks about how you use Chrome DevTools, accessibility tools. I just remembered one quick thing with this one. If you go to elements, just look at the kind of DOM markup, then one of the tabs that you have is accessibility. And what's cool about it, so it's probably better to inspect the button. So there is a thing that shows you accessibility tree, which shows you like that's a link inside a main, inside a form, inside the page that says welcome, and it has text register account, as well as name for the button, its role, it's a link, and its kind of state, I guess, is focusable. So I think like what it shows here is all of the API that is being provided to the screen reader in order for it to read it. So like the way how it knows that this element over here is a link that has this name and it's focusable or disabled sometimes, then it's really based on what that accessibility tree has.
Okay.
So it's like more kind of low level.
Yeah. To see how the voice or how screen readers will behave based on this.
Right.
Nice. I didn't know that. It's pretty useful if you want to build that service.
Yes.
For full accessibility audit.
Maybe
this is a good area.
Remember how in a past episode about Puppeteer you were talking about the Chrome protocol like that allows you to hook in?
The DevTools, the DevTools protocol.
So interesting if that has been exposed through it.
Yeah, it would be really interesting.
Okay, fundamentals of accessibility, another page on Google. How to make website accessible, recommendation by Ontario.c, and I guess another course from Google Chrome team. These are just the links that talk about, those are videos, YouTube videos that talk about how people use JAWS, like a real life example of person being recorded using JAWS, person or like a switch technology, which is like a button that someone press and kind of like starts almost like tabbing through the page or something like that, or reading the page, and you press the button and then maybe it would bring some actions for the elements where it's talked.
Yeah.
Voice control, someone trying to kind of control what's on the page just by saying something. And adopted keyboard, just a special keyboard for accessible needs. So those are pretty cool videos to check out. And then I guess some more interesting material, there is a show, Australian show, like where people are being asked some questions, people of certain groups minorities are being asked some questions that no one really asks, but like a lot of people say that anyway on the internet, and like kind of like the questions of like how those minorities feel when they are touching those topics.
Okay.
So and that CBC company, which is Canadian Broadcasting Company, created their own show where they invite people with accessibility needs and they ask them some special questions. And I think this show is free. You can watch any episode for free, and you can see that like there are people with all kind of special needs who are talking about like answering some questions. And just by watching this one, like I think that my understanding of the accessibility expanded so much. I became so much more patient with anyone because I don't really know what is happening with them, like what is their health condition, what is their mental condition, etc., etc. So just by watching this show, I think like I got a lot more empathy, and really recommend to check it out.
You're a very wise man, Sergey.
I hope I'm getting better. Alright, then another one. So it's another YouTube video where deaf people being asked some commonly Googled questions, and maybe one of the example is like, do you think, for example, like how do you think? Like maybe if you never heard what the word is, how it sounds, then what is it like in your head? And some people say that of course we think, but it's different. Like we might think in a sign language, but it's not a full sign language. It's like something like more custom, some associations, and then a similar one for blind people.
Because when we think, like if you can hear, when you think of, I guess, those words
Right.
in audio form, right?
Yes.
Like in your head you have like a...
Yeah, like
I see.
I'm trying to think of conversations or like my thoughts, like what's my response to some situations.
Yeah, it's like a voice inside your head, right?
Right.
But if you're deaf, then you have that voice.
Then there is a similar one about blind people, kind of like, do you dream, for example? And then if yes, then what do you see? If you can say that. So it's another interesting example. And then there is that Tommy Edison experience, which is like he is blind from birth, and he talks about his experience of being blind, like different situations, how sometimes he runs into accessibility issues, or like how he communicates with some in some situations with, say, like how would you communicate with the deaf person being blind, like so. And like he has examples like that. And actually I think this entire section is entertaining in a way, because they try to kind of make it funny, like the way how all of those shows are put. It's like it's actually interesting and sometimes funny, sometimes sad, but like it's very, very engaging
Yeah,
content.
yeah. It's not just dry.
Right.
So that last one, these are not CBC shows. These are separate, right?
So this is the CBC show, and then the rest are just YouTube videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And I think that is it for today.
Wow, man, like that was so thorough and elaborate. It's crazy how much information you just discussed.
Yeah.
Amazing. I feel like you should write a book. It's
Not
gonna fit in a webtalk.
Well, first of all, like by the way, by the time when we like write the book, then it will be like already too late. There will be like more new material. And how do you put links in there, like about those video experience, or like do you try to describe them? How do you make that accessible?
Yeah. Imagine your book is not accessible.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, dude. You've done so much research. So I guess aside from the video, I think people should click on the slides. There's a lot of links and information in there.
Right.
I think watching the video is not going to be enough, probably, to reference all this stuff.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I learned a lot. That's
Cool.
very useful. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. So do we jump into the next section? Speed round?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Present it. Okay, so 6.
All right.
All right, Brave Distill View. So something that I didn't know exists, but I just discovered that feature. So say I will go to Smashing Magazine. I probably spelled it wrong, but that's okay. And just go to some article. And what I find sometimes that I don't like the position, like the way how text is positioned. I want it to be like centered. I don't want to have sidebars. Just want to focus on the text specifically. And for that, I did use some extensions before, like which would strip out things that are not relevant and just take title and kind of try to figure out.
I think there was one I clearly or I readly or something like that.
Yes, like clearly that was.
Clearly, yeah.
I think you actually recommended it to me. Like it was like a Evernote extension that displayed the text for you.
Okay. I vaguely remember.
So I did use it for a while, and then I think they stopped supporting it. So I don't even know if it's still on the web store. So I used some other tools, but I don't like installing extensions for some privacy concerns in general. And if something can be built into the browser, then that's what I would prefer. So I found, as I was looking for, I don't remember what, like some settings over here, I found that Brave has the distilled mode. So I'm like, okay, what's that? Let me click on it. And that's basically doing exactly what Clearly was doing. So I can set different backgrounds, select the font type that I like, make the text bigger or smaller, and all of that is happening within the browser. So it must be the built-in feature that would just bring you all of the.
It's not going to a server.
Yes.
So do you know if it's on mobile, like in Brave on mobile?
Good question. So on mobile, yes, it also exists, but it works a bit different. It actually, I think the browser, if it detects that you are on a page that is an article, it has an article layout, then some small button would appear at the bottom, kind of slides up, to offer you turn on that distilled mode.
Okay. Cool. I'll try it out. Very useful. There's a lot of garbage, like every time you want to read an article, it's like, okay, the ads are one thing, but all the sidebars and it eats up so much space.
Yes.
And you just want to look at the main thing.
And also very inconsistent. Like every site is different, so.
Yeah, like different fonts, different colors, different sizes, and if you wanna just awesome.
All right, Haven app.
Yeah, so Haven app is an app developed by Snowden, Edward Snowden. If you click on actually, I can click on it.
Yep.
Edward Snowden, the guy who.
Yeah, this is a good intro video to it. Basically, you install this app on a cheap Android, like you got a cheap Android device, you install this app, and you can set it up so that if it detects noises or motion, for example, I think here, like it will analyze the video feed, and if there are changes in video, it will send you notifications. So you can set it up so that it works over the Signal protocol or Tor protocol.
What's Signal protocol? I don't know. I heard about
So
Tor.
Signal protocol is there's an app called Signal that's very popular. It's an encrypted, end-to-end encrypted messaging app. Privacy that fits in your pocket. So I don't know the full story. I don't remember, but basically, yeah, it's a very popular app used by like political, I don't know, dissidents and journalists in dangerous areas, dangerous countries. And then after the app, like they open sourced the Signal protocol, I think. I think it's on GitHub. Yeah. Anyways, there's a protocol for Signal that I believe was outsourced. Yeah. So this app will piggyback on Signal or Tor to make sure that the communication it's sending you is encrypted as well. So it's used by same kind of audience, like political dissidents, journalists. It's I believe it's called the herd safety or something. It's like, how do you make sure that you're being witnessed if something were to happen to you? This is what this thing ensures.
Oh, I see. Huh.
Yeah.
So it's like streaming that somewhere?
Yeah, so it can send you video, can send you audio to wherever you want it to send that information.
So there must be like some server or maybe another person who would be connected, and then like
so it sends it sends notification through Signal, like text and whatever. But if you wanted to send video or audio, it will use the Tor network. So you can have a Tor node somewhere that your friend is running.
So it's
they
like,
will send them the video.
So the way how I understand that there are multiple tools in there, some for communication, some for kind of notifying others that you're in danger, interesting.
So it can notify you. Let's say you're not home, and you have an iPhone, for example, and you just get a cheap Android. You install that app on it. You have it like facing the door or something, or you have it hidden somewhere. And if it hears a noise, then it could trigger a notification to you through Signal.
Oh.
But yeah, so that you know.
That's cool. It's actually pretty cool I was thinking of what to use for, like home security, right? And I definitely want to use some local tool instead of that being uploaded to, some servers that I have no control of. So that's pretty cool use case for me, at least.
Yeah. It's actually targeting those cases as well. Like they do talk about it in this video. There's another video by Snowden himself, Edward Snowden. Like I think everyone knows him. He was a big contributor to this project. Like he open sourced this project called Haven app.
Cool. So like what do you recommend to install it on like a regular phone, or it's better for like just a separate device?
I think you should get it on I mean, it depends. Like you can buy, I mean, they were saying you can get $100 Android phone. That's the reason why they didn't do it on iOS. Well, aside from other challenges.
Oh yeah.
Because it's much cheaper to get a device that you just put around, your house, or you have it be like a security system, like you were saying. But I'm actually thinking that too, because I have like, a tablet,
Right.
an Android tablet that's crap. Like it doesn't do much. I can just use the camera and the sensor and the mic to do this kind of.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for showing it to me. Right.
Anytime.
So next one is shopping for speed on eBay. So that's just an article that talks about how eBay improved their performance and already saw a benefit in add to cart conversion. Just like some deep analysis of what they did, how they improved the first contentful paint, like how it was before and what happened after. Talking about reduce payload across all text resources, so compression, like maybe minification, different things. Critical path optimization for above the fold, so probably inlining some CSS and maybe on like some JavaScript to make critical functionality functional. Perform some image optimizations, and it seems that still, like to date, images are the largest contributors to page load. It used to be when I was actively developing, and seems that it's the same right now.
The case, yeah.
So they are trying to, I guess, load WebP images right now, like for browsers that support it. But I know that one of the techniques that I used in the past is you can look at the user agent and sorry, not user agent, the headers that are being sent to you by the browsers, and see what it accepts. So usually for browsers, so say like with Chrome, if we look at it, and we look at document. So over here, browser sent request header that says, let's me refresh this page quickly. User agent. Maybe it's not for document, but for say like images. User agent provisions.
What's the header that it sends? It's accept content?
Yes, that's the one that I'm looking for. I don't see it here for some reason. It's so weird. But usually there is a header that says I can accept those formats, and then server can look at it, and even though I don't know, for some reason I'm missing it, but even though you requested JPEG, I have WebP, so let me reply with WebP instead for you, because that would be more optimal. So that might be one way to handle.
So this would be your web server would have some logic, or how?
Yes.
Who would decide? Yeah.
Yes. So you would need to have two files with two formats, either like pre-created, or maybe you only have original one, which is JPEG, but then as you're requesting this file for the first time, maybe you don't have the WebP version, but you can create one on the fly and stream it back. For first request it might be slower, but for the next ones it would be in place.
Nice. So this would be on the application layer, or like on like Nginx or Apache, or
probably
like on that?
I think it would be more optimal to put it on Nginx, yeah. And then they used the prefetch tag for getting some resources. The prefetch attributes. Prefetch and topper is also kind of preloading some pages right away. Like probably they did an analysis of what are the highest clicked pages most of the time, and as a result they were requesting them ahead of time, so that users don't have to wait when they actually click on those articles. downloading of search images, so similar technique. Edge caching, so that's like caching data on the inside the CDN, and specifically for auto-suggestion.
I feel like performance is like, another one of those topics, like accessibility, that there's just so much that you can do, so many different tools and approaches and take.
Yep. So I found that's a pretty cool article. I didn't use all of the methods from it, but by the look of it, it's very good.
I think you were saying at some point in the future you'll be doing a web performance episode, right?
Yeah, we'll make it together. Talk about our experience.
Sure. I look forward to your episode.
All right. Okay, Frontend Checklist.
Okay, so Frontend Checklist is perfect for modern websites and meticulous developers. Yeah. So before you go live, this is a good checklist to go over. Make sure you're addressing all the different areas. Let's see, like for testing. Yeah, for example, all CSS are without errors, responsive web design. Did you validate your CSS? They work well on all browsers, mobile. Maybe that's not a good
testing. Huh. Is there automation there as well, or it's just manual?
It's just manual. It's just a list. It's based on a GitHub project. Just things that you should keep in mind before you go live, in case you forget. Like for example, vendor prefix. Did you handle that in your app? Do you need to? Identification. I mean, some stuff is obvious now with the build tools, but some you might forget. Non-blocking. Make sure that your CSS is not blocking. Notification, JavaScript inline.
So this one, so I'm looking at this one, the JavaScript inline, and it says you don't have any JavaScript code inline mixed with your HTML code. I guess that shouldn't be like a red dot. I think there are situations where you probably want it to be inline. Again, like for that same reason which we just talked about, for kind of critical, like critical functionality.
Above the fold kind of thing, yeah.
But of course it shouldn't be like big. I don't want to put entire JavaScript resources there.
Yeah, I feel like some stuff is pretty outdated. But now that I'm reading it, because that used to be a thing back in the day, like. But I think we've made a full circle on some of these subjects. Picture source set, use that.
I like it. Like I like that checklist. I know that maybe a couple of weeks ago someone in my company was creating a checklist, and it was based on the experience of like the things that we had to deal with. But I don't think that it was as big as this one. So I was like, in the back of my head, I was thinking that there must be something that exists that has the checklist, and that's pretty cool service.
Yeah, I just saw it trending on GitHub the other day. So I'm like,
did you use checklists before?
Like similar to what you said. I mean, honestly, a lot of it is just gut check, like you try to remember things, but I haven't formally used a thorough checklist like this one.
Right. Cool.
Robots.txt, yeah. So there's things that you could forget. Just good to go through the list and double check.
So I think like probably for a big project, that makes sense for me. Like for a big project, you're going to like invest a lot of time in it, and you need to have a good quality. So it's probably like that's probably the ideal place where I would go to the checklist. For a smaller project, probably not as much, because like every time going to like through that big list, I mean, some things should become natural, like you said, but also, you know, like if you think that quality is already good enough, and like everyone think, it seems that everyone thinks the same way, then it's probably good.
Yeah, it's more like, you know, taking that last mile, which you may not always take.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So the next item is tiny PNG. So again, web performance, and probably there is an item in Frontend Checklist that says you should compress your images. So tiny PNG is a service that would allow you to compress your images pretty aggressively. So you can upload up to 20 images, maximum 5 megabyte each per upload. I think you can analyze a web page. I've seen that somewhere before. There are some plugins. It's just like, I guess in general, if you think was that image optimized well or not well enough, then like that's a service that sometimes I use, not all the time, as DevTools also have an audit for performance that sometimes suggests, you know, like you can save so much. But yeah,
Right.
it's another one that is pretty good.
Nice. I'll keep that in mind.
Oh, so we have this scroll to text fragment. So that's a recent addition to Chrome, Google Chrome version 80, similar to same site cookies. They also released that feature. And
What is that?
Let's see. So if we go to this page, so it's a new feature where you can actually link to something that exists on the page, like some text content that exists on the page but doesn't have an anchor on it. So let's see.
It's about time. Wow.
So let's look at it at action, and I just came to that Wikipedia page, and you can see that, you know, like what's the first occurrence of text on, and it actually highlighted it for you. So I think
Very good. Very nice. Will it scroll down if it? I guess it will put it in focus, right?
Let's see.
Does the word exist?
I wonder if it's based on word or just based on occurrence. So it didn't really catch this one, sociability, by just the beginning. Ability.
Maybe there's some nuances to it, because there's that squiggly line and then text. So maybe there's partial versus full.
Okay, so let's try cat populations. And we will just scroll up and refresh. Let me try to...
Caught it, but it didn't scroll.
It's supposed to. I think actually the whole feature was that it should... Oh, so now it did. So maybe it's like, you know, still an experiment. Yeah.
Very nice. That's useful.
Okay. And the last one.
Last one, yeah. So Joe Rogan Experience. A lot of people are familiar with it, but I thought I would mention it just in case. Do you listen to him?
I know of him. I didn't really check the shows yet. But
okay. So basically, this is taken from their website. Long form conversation hosted by him with friends and guests, included comedians, actors, musicians, MMA fighters. He's also into martial arts, authors, artists, and beyond. So, like, this guy, he brings a lot of different people on, like different backgrounds, different political affiliations. So that's kind of what I like about him, is he's not he's not liberal, he's not conservative. Like he will bring anyone on his talk shows to get their perspective. So it's a very rare thing to find in today's climate. So
Cool.
yeah,
So
very educational. I listen to him all the time.
so it's not just about politics, right? It's about everything.
Yeah, it's about everything. Yeah, it's about everything and anything. But yeah, he does tend to bring politicians, which is the reason why I like him. Like I like to listen to the political episodes. Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
I'm going to check some episodes out, see what I think.
Yeah, check it out.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think this should conclude it.
Yep.
Right.
And thank you everyone who watched to this point. I don't know if there are many, to be honest, but
1% left.
yes. Even if that's the case, it's a success. So please comment on our video. Let us know what you think. If you have any thoughts, if there is something that you want us to talk about. Yeah.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
Marwan. Bye.
Thanks. Okay.